owners and us as entrepreneurs as well. Like Tracy mentioned, we tend to forget about ourselves. We focus a lot about growing our clients' wealth. So I'm going to ask the panel to come up. We have Jessica Sibbles from CIC. And we have Jules. Oh my God, I always botch your last name. And I talk to you all the time. She's my good friend too. Measure from Chicago Title Land Trust. And lastly, Vince Darty from, sorry guys, from Financial Management LP, financial advisor. Thank you all three for joining us today. I have these really long bios and I could read these off, or we could start with you guys telling us in your own words a little bit about yourselves. I'll start with you, Jessica.
Okay. Hi, good afternoon. So I am Jessica Sibbles. I'm the Director of Property Management Training with Community Investment Corporation, CIC. I've been in the position, I'm gonna give you a short version of my long story, but I've been in the position at CIC for about 2.5 years. Prior to that, I used to work for the Chicago Associates. There I headed up the Commercial Forum Group and the International Committee, as well as the Education Foundation. So I'm very familiar with the realtors as a whole in real estate industry. And then after that, I worked for the Chicago Land Apartment Association. So there I was a senior manager of education. It was interesting working there with the bigger management companies, and this position at CIC became available. And I thought I would be a good fit. My predecessor, he decided to retire. And I've been there, and so far so good. And we'll talk about why I'm there. So, thanks.
Thank you, Jessica.
Hey guys, how we doing? We having a good time already?
Yes.
Those fingerling potatoes or something, right? Can we all agree on that? All right, my name is Julia Measure. I'm the Assistant and Trust Counsel for a company called Chicago Title Land Trust Company. I specialize in real estate privacy, asset and liability protection, and some estate planning. I've been with the company for 5 years now, and prior to that, I worked for private practice. I did real estate closings, I did real estate tax appeals, and prior to that, worked for the Cook County Attorney's Office, where I prosecuted in the felony trial division. So lots of murders and rapists, and thought that real estate would be a less volatile field. And that was, I don't know what I was thinking on that one. But I'm really looking forward to talking to you guys about how real estate privacy is going to be super beneficial for you and your clients.
What else do you do?
I also own a spin studio. I do. It's called Bike Kettle, or Bike-a-let, as Chris likes to call it. And I do have 2 locations, one in Humboldt Park and one on the south side of Chicago in Chatham. So all about, please, I would love that. Let's go. So yes, real estate privacy and spin.
That was very nice. Hi, everyone. My name is Vince Nardi, and I am a financial advisor with Forum Financial. I tend to help a lot of independent business owners create and protect their wealth. I have a lot of focus in the real estate industry, whether it be realtors, mortgage brokers, or real estate attorneys. Things that we do are planning for retirement, that transition of going into retirement, whether we have to apply for Social Security, evaluating supplemental plans, and then finally, how do we protect your nest egg that you've worked all your life to create so that it lasts for the entire duration of retirement? So those are things that I do.
Very good. Okay, we're going to start out with Jessica. Jessica, it seems like in this current real estate market, many people have invested in real estate. If someone here would like to become an investor, where do they get started? Because you do counseling for development for business, new investors with CIC, correct?
Somewhat.
Okay.
I'm a good starting place. If you were thinking about becoming a in real estate, well, kind of, sort of, in real estate investing. So I would say, traditionally, if you were to think about becoming an investor in real estate, you would think about location, right? You would think about the money source. How would I be able to acquire the building? That's the traditional way of thinking. I would say education. You would have to know about the industry. You have to know about it. You have to learn about it. You have to come to workshops like this, or, listen to podcasts, or get information before you put the money into the investment. People, I get it, they look at the outcomes. When people see, well, it's got to be easy, right? It's got to be easy. I buy an apartment, right? Fix it up, get some tenants, done. I comes in. It's just that easy. It's really not that easy. So you have to put some education. And again, people, I understand they're very excited. They want to, go to every workshop, every conference, it's great. Slow down with that, but education, educate yourself prior to that. And you want to have some understanding. Some people think, well, I'm in real estate, so I need to go get my real estate license. You don't have to do that either to be an investor. But yeah, the first step, educate yourself about the industry, what type of investor you want to be. Again, people are looking at the outcomes. They're saying, well, it's got to be easy. They wake up, at 3 o'clock in the morning and watch the infomercials, and they think no money down. I can use other people's money. We'll talk about that later. And it's easy, and it's really not. So education.
Just because you have the money doesn't mean you can be a real estate investor successfully without educating yourself first.
That's right.
Good advice, good advice. Julia, as a new real estate investor, what should investors be mindful when starting a business?
That's a great question. So in today's day and age, we're all very exposed, right? Everyone has cell phones, right? Smartphones. I have 2, a laptop, iPad, right? We all use social media. I'm a social media queen. I'm like super basic. On a plane. Look at me. No one's ever seen clouds or airplane wings before in their life, right? And so professionally, we all want to be very exposed, right? But personally, we want to remain very private for several reasons. So acquiring wealth is one thing. Keeping wealth is something completely different. And oftentimes we don't realize how exposed we really are, right? So speaking to a room full of amazing realtors, you guys know that at the end of a closing, there's a deed, right?
I do.
You do, right? And you know that deed holds a lot of very intimate details about a real estate transaction, right? So the new address, the new home buyer, property address, the mortgage information, purchase price, right? And that deed becomes a recorded document. And websites that we use every single day, Google, Zillow, Facebook, Trulia, LinkedIn, they pull all of that information. So if I'm a new investor and I'm buying up real estate, everybody has access to all my personal information. And guess what I become? Boom, okay. Y'all heard my presentation before? Exactly, you become a target. We live in a world of frivolous lawsuits in today's day and age, and it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. So it's very important for us to be proactive and to layer ourselves to protect ourselves, because oftentimes we're already in the middle of the storm. It's hard to be reactive. So I just say what Jessica said about education is key. Educate yourself, surround yourself with people that educate you on the things that you don't know, because we don't know everything about everything. I do, but you may not know everything about everything. So just make sure that you're educated and that you know. But I say in today's day and age, especially privacy in your personal life, because getting assets is the easy part. It's the holding on to them that's the difficult one.
And Jules, how do you protect your information from being out there?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking it. So who here knows what a land trust is? Wow, you guys are incredibly impressive. That's about 20 more people than usual. So basically, like I said, when we close on a piece of real estate on the deed, there's a home buyer, right? So if I were to buy a piece of real estate, my name would be on that deed. So if you were to Google Julia Measure, all of my real estate and real estate transactions would pop up because they're a matter of public record. So then there's something called a land trust. And basically what a land trust is a private way of holding title to your real estate. Okay, so on a deed, instead of it saying the home buyer being Julia Measure, it would say the home buyer would be Chicago Title Land Trust number 12345. The trust is governed by a document called a trust agreement. It's a one-page document. Okay, the way that it's set up is there's the beneficiary of the trust, which would be the home buyer, and then the trust allows you to have a contingent beneficiary. So that means the property, in the event that something should happen to the beneficiary, the property automatically passes to whoever is named as contingent, which allows home buyers to avoid probate court, which we all know is incredibly expensive, incredibly time-consuming, emotional experience that nobody should ever have to go through. So that's another part of being proactive and setting up our estate plan and holding on to our assets, because who works hard for their assets? A couple people are like, no, I don't work so hard. I work really, really hard for my assets, and I want them to go to who I want them to go to, not who the state of Illinois believes that they should go to, right? So that's really, really super, super important to be setting all those things up prior to acquiring those assets. So like I said, so we could hold on to them. So a land trust would be the tool that you would use to keep your real estate private, to keep for liability protection, and for your estate planning.
That is super helpful information, Jules. And Vince, I'm going to ask you the same question. What advice would you give your clients who would like to start investing in real estate?
So when I'm working with clients, I tend to take a very holistic view of what they're bringing to the table, where they're at, how they look on a cash flow basis, and how consistent that income is. And if that income is consistent where they can go out and purchase a real estate investment, then we'll talk about what their goal is. Is their goal passive income? Is their goal capital appreciation? Is their goal development? And then from there, we'll take it to that next step. So we'll talk about liquidity sources, where we can draw upon so that we can make those dreams realized.
Very good. Now, Jessica, I have another question for you. You've seen highs and lows in real estate for being in this business for 15 years. I'm sure you've seen investors lose money. What are the common mistakes that investors make when purchasing real estate?
Well, a common mistake is, again, it goes in the preparation for, I would say it goes into reserves or lack of. That's where pretty much that's where they lose their hats. Reserve meaning you don't prepare for vacancies. If you have rental properties, you don't prepare for deferred maintenance, insurance. Say for instance, it's a slip or fall or lawsuits. Again, Lord forbid, we got some tenants. Again, that's where I reference from. Lawsuits. Liability, not enough, underinsured. So it's the reserves and lack of. That's pretty much where, things get tight. And, when they lose money, that's pretty much, they are 100% on that investment. Either it's, the cash flow, it flowed. And for some, whatever reason, things happen. I can just say, the preparation, again, I can just only go by what CIC does, like on an annual basis. We actually go through our tenant, well, not through our tenants, through our clients. We do like a review of our clients to see how their properties are doing, just on an external, we take a look at them to see what they're doing financially, to make sure if they're, delinquent on their payments. And that's pretty much how you see how their checks and balances as far as accounting goes, to see. And again, we as a company know sometimes we need to go in and assess. Every company is not like that. Again, that's the reason why CIC is unique. Shameless plug. But, we can see, or we have hindsight to see, okay, this client might be in some trouble as far as like losing money or bad investments. again, things happen, if it's, if you're doing a flip and you don't have an exit strategy, you can lose your assets.
They're
Literally.
contractors.
We're not even gonna talk, that's a whole nother seminar about general contractors. But again, it's not preparing for those. And again, that's where you lose. And unfortunately, a lot of people, that's where, they can lose money and lose properties.
Right, thank you. Now, my next question is for Vince. Many people dream of using real estate investments to create passive income for retirement. Is real estate a complete retirement plan?
No, it's not a complete plan, but it is a part of a plan that you can use to create some constant, consistent income. I say that it's not a complete plan because there are some liquidity issues that you have with it. Your money will be tied up in the actual parcel. When we try to create a plan, we try to create one that's including your taxable assets, tax deferred assets, and then tax advantaged assets. And using those three legs, we try to create a plan that works best for you.
Very good. Oh, you're holding the mic, like, I'm gonna ask you
I'm a
something.
mic
'Cause
holder.
You're ready. Tell me the difference between, we talked about the land trust. Tell me, if I have a living trust, does that work the same way as a land trust, or do I need both, or do I need one or the other, or will both protect me, or is one better than the other one? Can you explain that?
I'm gonna answer every single one of those questions you just asked. So this goes part into education, right? Oftentimes people confuse certain tools to have benefits that they don't have. And so I hear this often. I hear people say to me, Julia, I don't need a land trust because I have a living trust. Or they'll say, Julia, I don't need a land trust because I have an LLC. All tools are beautiful, okay? But because we live in the type of world that we live in, it's very important to be layering for our protection, okay? One tool is rarely going to be enough. So a living trust and a land trust are two very different things. For your clients and for yourself, if you have a sophisticated estate plan, a living trust is necessary for your estate planning needs. A land trust only holds real estate, okay? What a living trust does not do for you is it provides you no privacy protection. Because usually the way that living trusts are set up is they will say the Julia Measure Living Trust number 12345. Okay? Are we familiar that at the end of every year, Cranes comes out with the 50 top real estate transactions that happen in the Chicagoland area? We familiar? So last year, the top 15 transactions, 8 of them were in Chicago Title Land Trust, and the other in a living trust, or they were in the client's own name. As an attorney, what I wanted to do was go slip and fall on one of those properties myself. Okay? Because when I got a judgment entered against one of these living trusts or individuals, I was going to get paid out on that, right? Because I know that these people have assets. So to prevent people coming and slipping and falling on your property, what you should do is make the living trust the beneficiary of your land trust, because then you have the privacy protection of the land trust and the sophistication of estate planning in the living trust. Same thing with LLCs, okay? LLCs are great for liability protection. What LLCs do not offer you is they do not offer you privacy protection. Why? I can go on the Secretary of State website, type in the name of the LLC, and see who the managing members of that are. So what you would do is you would have the LLC be the beneficiary, again, of the land trust, especially if you're an investor. Make that LLC the beneficiary of the land trust. Then you get the liability protection of the LLC and the privacy protection of the land trust. So it's never really an either or situation. It's usually an and. It's usually an and, because we got to encompass a lot of needs in that. So if you want full protection, I would always recommend layering.
Very good. Is there a question on that? Did I see? No. Thought you raised your hand. So,
Yeah.
okay.
I think there's one question there.
One question. I'm sorry.
You were talking about the beneficiaries to the land trust.
Yeah.
You would recommend a living trust and the LLC as both?
No, I would recommend one or the other.
Okay.
Jessica, my next question is for you. You touched on this a little bit, but what would you have to say to somebody who thinks real estate is a get rich quick kind of program?
It is, right?
Is it?
Right, you get rich quick. Again, you buy it, fix it, rent it out, and you're rich. No, so it's, it's hard to demyth a lot of stuff because there's a lot of, everybody's a Google scholar. So they looked it up, it's on the internet, so it's Bible, it's the truth. And my friend did it, right? It worked for him or it worked for her, so it's gotta work for me. Not that they've been saving since they, 15, that they had money or, they got money a certain way, but it worked for them. So the get rich, it's seasonal, I guess. I mean, what's hot now? Let's see, purchasing, tax deeds are now, what sells?
Wholesaling.
Wholesaling,
very big.
wholesaling, right, everybody can do it, but you don't have buyers lined up, or you don't have inventory, right? So again, it's real, you let people vet it, you tell them if they're really, well, I'm a wholesaler. Really? Have you did a transaction? Have you actually, well, I'm going through the education of it, right? I'm going through the seminars of being a wholesaler. And, now I'm a guru because I got this certificate, even though there's nothing wrong with getting the certificate. But, with the get rich, and they see the flashy cars and they see the end result that it worked for some people. And some people, by all means, they are successful wholesalers because, again, they have their systems in place. They've done their homework, even with the deeds and various, different states. It's worked for them. It's out there, I don't do a lot of forecasting as far as the new trends or the get rich schemes, but I can tell you what's proven. Again, investment on solid properties. I can tell you what that is. So that can be I'm like, this is successful. This is work. This is a true factual transaction that has worked. So hopefully that outweighs the myths out there.
No, not everybody knows what wholesaling is. Can you so everybody know what wholesaling is? I see one person. All right, can you explain?
Okay, so
Jessica,
I am
what
not an
wholesaling
expert.
is?
I'm not again. So wholesaling, I'm assuming this is again somebody who can jump who's familiar with any wholesalers in the house.
I'm not a broker, licensed broker.
Okay.
That's why I don't like wholesale.
So again, the deal or what I've heard is that you don't need any of your own money, right? You don't use any of your personal credit, right? And you put a contract on a particular property and you hold the contract. You, like, say for instance, you get a particular seller of a house. You have someone who sells it for a lower price or whatever, they're in distress, and you get them to sell their home for $30,000, but it's really valued at maybe $50,000, right? You get a buyer, right? You get this person on the contract, right? It's just on paper. I'm assuming this is how it works. This is the Jessica Civil's version of how it works. Again, internet world, Jessica Civil's version. So you get it for $30,000, but the comps supported to be at $50,000. So you have a buyer on this, cash buyer or whatever on this side, who says, okay, well, maybe I'll give you $40,000 for it, right? So you have this person, you get him under contract. So technically you're the middle person, go between these two transactions. So technically the buyer's buying it for $30,000 and you get a $10,000 profit transaction fee and the transaction happens. So you're like the middleman, but you get a percentage of the deal or a fee or whatever. So it's been working, I guess. Good luck. But, but again, you have to have resources behind that.
So sorry.
No, please.
So it makes me really nervous. Like I'm like having an anxiety, like listening to this. Like people love it. There's people that do classes. I think you gotta pay 30 grand just to go in and they tell you how to do this. This used to be called double closing where clink. So like I don't know why everyone's talking about this.
So to has a fancy name.
Well, the original question was what would be a get rich quick?
No, I know,
Yeah.
but I just, like, she's telling it just fairly, like, I'm just saying, like, it's really bad, I think.
It sounds risky.
In this day of the internet, you have to sell for 30,000. So
Seniors.
you have these people spending
Seniors.
$30,000 to get through the wholesale classes and to get a certificate, and then they're trying to find this phantom seller that's so uneducated and preying on, and quite frankly, they're preying on these people that are either senior citizens or in a mental state that they can't understand, that quite frankly, that sale might be voided anyway.
True.
So I think it's a mess.
Well, Nick, I think the money source is actually on the workshops or whatever. If they can find the
Yeah.
people who are
To pay the
just saying,
$30,000.
yeah.
Mhm.
It's not always the senior citizen, it's often, many wholesalers are taking advantage of utilizing the judicial sales. And so you get the sales at auction, for a lower price, which is gonna be below market, and from there, they find the end for it. So they're able to take advantage of the fact that you're able to get the property through auction, cheaper, and then buy the market price, buyer.
I just want to add that the current license law is written, this is a very gray area of license law, even though most of the wholesalers are not licensed, you could be eligible for a civil penalty.
Yeah.
So throw that out there.
So let's make this clear, we're talking this as something that is more like a scheme or a fad. This is not good advice.
Right.
This is a get rich quick scheme or perception in the market, perception. So this is not advice that our panel is giving today.
No, by all means. But again, that's.
But be aware that there are programs out there like this, and it seems who's profiting is the one holding these seminars.
Could be,
Risky
maybe, could be. But
transactions.
yeah,
Could be.
it's out there again.
I don't know, if I'm holding a seminar, I got nothing to lose, right? You're giving me your money and I can talk about anything I want. And I
Right,
got
because
your
there's no
money and-
promises,
And
right?
you're unregulated.
And then, I'm sorry,
And you're
and
unregulated.
I'm unregulated.
So you have no responsibility for the information you disclose.
Yeah, well, that's
Because it's their philosophy.
Scary.
It's Jessica Simmons' way.
scary.
Next question.
So Vince, what advice would you give to somebody that might have gotten themselves in a situation like this and are losing money? What kind of advice would you give to your client?
Who's in a situation with an investable asset and they're actually in the red.
Yes.
So I think for that particular case, we would talk about what their goals are. If their goals are to keep funding this asset until it actually eventually gets positive, and then we could do a comparison of what it would look like trying to take the asset out and take that loss now, harvest that capital gain, and move forward. I come from the trading world, and as I moved into the financial advising world, that is something I still recall, and it's moving on with your loss, taking some of it and then just using it, rolling it over and harvesting that loss for future uses. So that is something we would talk about, although I haven't had that experience just yet, so I'm grateful.
Well, that's great. That's great. Can you hold on to your mic for a second? Was there a question? Is there a question? I'm taking questions also. This is a really good conversation. This is good advice on what not to do. So, one question on here, which I am conflicted about, it says statistically, this is not my statistic, I don't know where this is coming from. Many realtors are overwhelmed by poor credit, high debt, and no plan for retirement. I think that we can take realtors out and any of us could be in some trouble. What advice would you give to somebody who still needs to plan for their retirement with some trouble behind them?
So some trouble is not a problem. Some trouble you can move forward. The big question I have is cash flow. How are you doing consistently month to month? And if you are having troubles month to month, what's your track record like last 12 months? Are you having that consistency of income where you can start creating a plan? If you are, then you're in a good shape. You can get past those troubles. If you're not, then you need to do some hard self-analyzing and say, what's next for me? What habits do I need to change to become that successful cash flow producer?
Now, do you help your clients with that? Do you analyze their spending? Because I've done that with a financial planner before, and it is the most eye-opening
Oh my God, yeah.
thing you can ever have with myself. He's like going through like my debit cards, my credit cards, like, everything, and categorizing all of your spending. Is that something that you offer to your clients?
Sure, when a client comes
So
in and
painful.
and
I need
hires
a
our
big
services.
drink after that.
It's usually a sigh of relief because now you have an idea
It is, it
where your
is,
money's
it is.
going. So that is something that we do offer our clients, and that's just included in the services we provide. But another thing that we offer is we offer them kind of a reality check of where they're doing and how they're doing and what their goals are. Are we going to make it? And that's a question that we try to answer.
In the past 10 years, we've seen so many changes in this market. We've seen a lot of accidental landlords, including myself. I bought my place in 2005 and moved in with my fiance in 2013, 14. And I was not able to sell my place, but I was able to rent it and make positive cash flow on with the mortgage payment and everything. What would you suggest the extra money you're making? I'm making, full disclosure, we're talking about how much money, I make $300 a month extra on my investment on the south side of Chicago. And my husband found out and he's like, no, that's going into an IRA. So is that something you would suggest to your clients with positive cash flow, or would you suggest something else? I mean, I'm sure.
I think the answer is it depends.
Okay.
It depends on what your scenario is and where you're at. Do you have a retirement? These are hypothetical
You can
questions.
use me. I am an open book.
My question was, is there already a plan in place for retirement? Is there a liquidity issue that we need to address? Do we need to get your savings up so that if there is a poor commission gap, we can be covered and you can know that your mortgage will be paid
Like
for?
January and February.
Sure, or 2008.
Or 2008.
So we have to ask these questions, and we got to create those measures in place so that you are prepared for that.
Excellent advice. Jules?
Yeah.
If you could give one solid tip to, wait, that's Julia. Hang on. Julia, Jessica. I got my J's. Okay. Julia, if you could give one solid tip to protect someone's assets against liability, it would be to do what?
Well, like I said, LLCs are really good liability.
Does everybody need an LLC? Like, do I need an LLC being an accidental landlord? Or is
Yeah, so I would say if you're a real estate investor and you have tenants living in your property, you should absolutely get an LLC. If it's your primary residence, you probably don't need one. But if you are an investor and you have especially several pieces of real estate, I would always recommend using LLCs. Yes.
There is some issues with getting the mortgage if you have the LLC. Does that happen too when you have a land trust?
That's an excellent question. Yes. So there are some mortgage lenders that will not allow you to close into an LLC. There are some mortgage lenders that will tell you that you cannot close directly into a land trust. So here's the thing. Land trusts for a long period of time were kind of obsolete. And then we had this boom in technology. And then people's privacy concerns popped up. And so land trusts, like 80s fashion, have come back in style. And so for a long time, people didn't know what a land trust was. And so in the past 5 years, I've taken it upon myself to basically educate lenders, attorneys, realtors, investors, consumers on what a land trust is. And so a lot of lenders, 5 years ago, were not allowing their clients to close directly into a trust. But then once they learned what a trust was, they've changed their mind. And mostly because consumers are now demanding privacy, they've changed their mind. There are still a handful of lenders that will not allow their clients to do it. But I have a very, very long list of lenders that understand consumer privacy, understand the need for it, want to help their clients protect themselves, and will allow them to do it. Yes.
Good question. If you have a series LLC, so you have multiple properties under each their own series.
Yeah.
How would that work with a land trust? Then would it still be one land trust, or would it be multiple land trust with the series?
It would be multiple land trusts.
So each one would have its own.
Yes.
series too.
There's a lot. Go ahead, Sarah, you wanna do it?
No, go ahead.
Is there would you recommend putting each property in a land trust, or, is there a certain amount of properties that will go in a land trust or LLC?
That's a good question. So you can put as many properties into a land trust as you want. I would always recommend opening separate land trusts for separate properties. And here is why. They're different numbers. And here's why. If you get sued and a judgment is entered in your name, that judgment doesn't automatically attach to your real estate because your real estate's not in your name. It's in a land trust number. If a collections attorney takes steps to find out what your assets are, and they find your land trust, and it has 30 pieces of real estate in it, that judgment's going to attach to every single piece of real estate in that trust. If you have 5 land trusts and they only find 2, that judgment's only going to attach to the 2 that they find. So I always recommend that clients put separate properties into separate land trusts to have the ultimate protection. Yes.
And I was also told by an accountant, you should also create another LLC that collects the rent. The LLC that collects the rent should be separate from the property. It should, the LLC that the clients think you are should be just the one that collects the rent.
Okay. I'm not familiar to speak on that.
Okay.
That would probably be a CPA question, but that sounds like we talked about, that sounds like layering, and I'm always for layering, so that sounds good. Is there a question back there before? Chris?
Chris?
I had a question. So I know an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure, but I've always wondered, especially for small investors, the person may own 2 3 flats,
Yep.
or 1 3 flat and 2 separate condos.
Yep.
Do you have a rule of thumb on how much protection is needed? Because when you start adding up the $500 to create an LLC here, and however much it costs for a land trust, and however much it costs for this trust, are you doing way too much to protect not that much?
That's a good question. So oftentimes we think that bad things only happen in Lifetime movies, and that it's never going to happen to us, right? It's never, I'm going to be fine. It's never going to happen to me. It's never going to happen to me. I find that anything can happen to anybody, and oftentimes we don't know what our clients are going through unless we have that conversation with them. So if you have a conversation with your client and say, hey, did you know that you're super exposed? Did you know all your information is out on the public record? Did you know that if I Google your name, I can find out what all of your assets are? They're going to look at you like you have 3 eyes. They're going to have no idea. All right? So when you have that conversation with your clients, you're going to know how much protection that they need. I personally believe that everybody needs to protect their privacy because you don't know. I just had this conversation with a Chicago police officer. There's always 3 sides to every story, right? There's my side, there's your side, and then there's the truth, right? So his side of the story is he was chasing a defendant and the defendant ran into his patrol car. The defendant said the police officer was chasing him and rammed into the defendant with his patrol car. Who knows what happened, right? But then the police officer calls me and says that he's being sued in civil court by the defendant and he doesn't understand why. So I said, how many pieces of real estate do you own? 5. Totaling how much money? $3 million. And are they in your name? Are they in an LLC? What are they in? They're in my personal name. Well, that's why you're being sued in civil court, right? But that's not something that he would have thought of when he was buying real estate. That's not something he would have thought of when he signed up to be a police officer. So things happen. Things happen that we would have never considered could possibly happen. I had a situation, like I said, I came from trying child molesters and rapists and murderers to working at Chicago Title Land Trust Company, where this is what I do. I go around and I educate people, and you would think that this would be not a volatile situation. But my company got sued 2 years ago, and because my face is on the website, the plaintiff of that suit filed a death threat against me. I did not get a raise, which was weird, right? You would think the company would compensate me in that way. But I mean, who would have thought that me giving educational seminars would then have me afraid for my life, right? But you can't find my information out in the public. For those of you that are going to look, you can't find me, okay? I'm protected, but that's not something that I would have ever thought would happen. So no, I don't think there's, it's the price to open up a land trust is insanely low, right? For primary residence, $500,000 and below, it's $200 to open up the trust and $99 a year to maintain it. I spend more money at Starbucks a month than I do on a yearly land trust fee. So no, I don't really think that there is a price on safety, and I don't really think that you can have way too much liability protection. Maybe I just play on the safe side, but I'd rather sleep well at night knowing that me and my assets are protected than have to worry about it at a later date.
I wanted to ask you, have you seen land trust popularity grow in the last 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, significantly. I'd like to take all responsibility for that. No, but significantly. I would say that we've seen at least a 20% growth rate every single year for the past 5 years. And that's because social media, has blown up so much, and because the internet, the only reason I passed law school is because of Google, right? And we turn to those kinds of things all the time. And so we can find out everyone's information. Everyone is so exposed. And so the need for privacy has become very much in the forefront now. And so land trusts have grown significantly.
I wanted to ask you another question because I found the land trust piece pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Do you have a resource of preferred mortgage providers that will do business with a land trust?
That's needed.
Yes. I have a very large list of lenders that will absolutely know land trust inside and out, know how to close into a trust, and have no problem doing it. And for the lenders that don't know how to do it, the loan officers that haven't done it before, I have a lender specialist at my office. Her name is Kelly Byer, and she handholds lenders through the process daily. I also do a lot of lender presentations. I go out and I walk lenders through the process of how to do it. So, yeah, Tracy, you have a question?
I was looking, and some lenders offer like